rows of clan symbols. Then Hopis interpret a lot of older petroglyphs as clan symbols as well. So when you go in the field with Hopi consultants, they're going to read these as migrations and footprints of the ancestors and clan symbols. There are a lot of Hopi clans. I should ask Micers what, like 80 clans, or there were 80 clans in the historic period. And so there are a lot of symbols that can be recognized out there on the landscape. Then the spiral is often interpreted as a general symbol for migration, for this journey of the clans who emerged in one place, dispersed to many directions. Some of them had instructions to go around 4 times and then come together at the center place of the Hopi Mesas where they live now. So when you see the spiral, you might think about Hopi concepts of movement and migration. And some other tribes will talk about the wind or the path of the sun. Navajos in particular will interpret this as a whirlwind. But that concept of motion is what all of these interpretations have in common. Then this specific one that Alexander Stephen drew, you can still see at the Hopi village of Sapologhi on Second Mesa. It's on a boulder right by the road. And this is a maze or labyrinth that represents not just, it can represent clan migration at that scale, but also the individual's path of life. So the life pathway. And this is very similar to the Tohono O'odham man in the maze figure. And it's also similar to figures in Greece and Tibet and all kinds of other places, and I'm not going there. I don't know what it means in those places. I think it's probably independent invention, but I'd love to be proven. Here are some paintings of Zuni Kachinas. They use the word koko for their version of what Hopis call Katsinas, their ancestral spirit beings who come in the form of clouds and rain every summer. And these were originally painted in the 1920s by workmen working for the Smithsonian Institution under the direction of an archaeologist named Frank H. Roberts. He was excavating a site called the Village of the Great Kivas, and his Zuni workmen used to eat lunch in this little rock shelter near the site, and they painted cocoa there during their lunch breaks. And Zuni people still come back and renew these and repaint them. So these have become very important to Zuni people, although we might say, well, that's not the religious imagery, but they weren't done in a religious context, but they've become something that's very important in the Zuni landscape today. And if you're interested in that and other Zuni views on that part, I recommend this book by Jane Young. This was her dissertation in American Studies at the University of New Mexico, called Signs from the Ancestors. And this is the way Zuni were referring to rock art, is signs from the ancestors. These are messages that they left for us to look at and to think about. So one of the images that I've been working with in consultation with the Hopi tribe is the butterfly hair whorls. So when a girl reaches puberty, she has a corn grinding ceremony in the summertime. She grinds corn and learns to make all the traditional foods and prepares a feast for her family. And her mother puts her hair up in whorls, and the Hopi translation is wearing a butterfly. So they symbol butterflies and summertime and all of the potential that a young unmarried girl has, all of the fertility and potential, and that she's now taking up her social and ritual responsibilities in the community. And most of the pueblos do this, not just Hopi. But here's an engraving, a historic period engraving that Alexander Stephen recorded in his 1890 journal. This used to be painted. But we find this going way, way back in time. So here's a pottery vessel that was in a pit house that's now under I-40 near Howe that George Gummerman excavated. Not George Gummerman had the anthropology department, but his father. And this pit house had beams in it that yielded tree ring dates in the 700s. So as an archaeologist, you look at the records of the excavations and you can just ask George. And it's a pretty secure association. This pot was made somewhere in the 700s and deposited in this pit house and then filled in until it was disturbed by freeway excavations. So we've got what we consider to be a very secure date on this vessel. It's also technologically and stylistically very consistent with the 700s. So this suggests to me that Hopi women have been putting up their daughters' hair in hair whorls since the 700s, and that's pretty significant. We also see these butterfly hair whorls in rock art all over the Colorado Plateau, and a little bit into the Prescott and Payson areas, but mostly it's a Colorado Plateau thing, highest density around the Four Corners area. And this particular image in Canyon de Chelly, like the colors of my fonts are off, but here's the hair whorls and the arrows on this yellow figure. So you've got a paired female figure with one that doesn't have sex or gender indicated. And then there's a little third one in between them. So the temptation is to think of a mother, father, and child, but that may or may not be what's going on. But I am going to argue that those are butterfly hair whorls on the head. And then there's a mud wall of a storage cyst plastered up against that painting. And in that mud was a temper, or like one does with adobe when adds, you add straw to adobes. Back in this time period, they were adding juniper bark to that mud to build up their storage structures. And that juniper bark radiocarbon dated into the AD 200s. And the painting, remember, because of superpositioning, the painting has to be older than that plaster of juniper bark in it. But we think it's probably not by very much older in this case. It looks like from the context and patterning of other sites in Canyon de Chelly that they're deliberately making paintings and then building the storage system over it so that the heads of the people kind of peek out from the storage system, and then there's handprints all over the place. So it's something about which families make and own these storage cysts or whose ancestors maybe are watching over these things. So this is a fancy probability curve. So something in here for the specialists to chew on. Another study that I've been working on and haven't come to any grand conclusions has to do with burden baskets being depicted on pottery in rock art, also figurines of burden baskets, actual burden baskets, especially left in votive type deposits in caves. But let's go to the Mimbres area of southwestern New Mexico in the 1000s up to about 1130 to get this style of pottery with very elaborate naturalistic depictions. And you've got a pregnant woman here with a burden basket on her back and then this poor animal draped over it. A woman carrying firewood in a burden basket. And just for now, look at the shape of this basket and the kinds of geometric designs that are on it. And here's a woman that Mark Thompson has interpreted as spider grandmother carrying the twins, the Euro twins that we were talking about earlier, on a burden basket. So notice this wedge-shaped basket with geometric designs on it and then this loop on the top. And we can see what this is because in all cases we've got women carrying this thing. So it's scaled to a human being. Here's a woman and a man. Below the female figure is a burden basket that's upside down to you with a parrot perched on it. And then below the man, you've got a bow, that D-shaped prehistoric bow, and two arrows.